Welcome to worship from Nora Unitarian Universalist Church for Sunday, February 14th, 2021. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm glad you're here wherever you are joining us from. If you are within driving distance of the church, you might want to stop by one day this week and pick up a heart. You'll see some snow hearts later in the service, and they're piled up on the brick beside the stairway to the church, and you're welcome to come and claim a piece of Nora's love for yourself. We gather in different ways again this morning. From computer screens, from cell phones, from tablets. We gather reaching across the wires and the Wi-Fi, waving from a safe distance, to come together in religious community. From living room to kitchen to family room, we gather as we are able, ready to be of service to each other and to the world, ready to build the community of hope and of love as we face this bright morning. We are apart, but we are together, offering our love, our commitment, our hope, our prayers, in service to one another and this world. It is a new way becoming familiar, and an old way that we come together in worship today. Someday, after harnessing the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love, and then for a second time in the history of the world, we will have discovered fire. We light our chalice this morning in anticipation of that discovery. For the second week in a row, we have a story written by Matt de la Pena. This week's is titled Love and is illustrated by Lauren Long. In the beginning, there was light, and two wide-eyed figures standing near the foot of your bed, and the sound of their voices is love. A cab driver plays love softly on his radio while you bounce in the back with the bumps of the city, and everything smells new, and it smells like life. Love, too, is the smell of crashing waves and a train whistling blindly in the distance, and each night the sky above your trailer turns the color of love. In a crowded concrete park, you toddle toward summer sprinklers while older kids skip rope and run up the slide, and soon you are running among them, and the echo of your laughter is love. One night, the fire alarm blares. You're pulled from sleep and whisked into the street where a quiet old lady is pointing to the sky. Stars shine long after they've flamed out, she tells you, and the shine they shine with is love. But it's not only stars that flame out, you discover. It's summers, too, and friendships and people. One day you find your family nervously huddled around the TV, but when you ask what happened, they answer with silence and shift between you and the screen. In your dreams that night, you are searching for a love that seems lost. You open and close drawers, lift cushions, empty old toy bins. But there's nothing. You wake with a start in the arms of a loved one who bends to your ear and whispers, "It's okay, it's okay, it's love." And in time, you learn to recognize a love overlooked, a love that wakes at dawn and rides to work on the bus, a slice of burned toast that tastes like love. And it's love in each deep crease of your grandfather's face as he lowers himself onto an overturned bucket to fish. And it's love in the rustling of leaves of gnarled trees lined behind the flower fields. And it's love in the made-up stories your uncles tell, in the backyard between wild horseshoe throws. And the man in the rags outside the subway station plays love notes that lift into the sky like tiny beacons of light. And the face staring back in the bathroom mirror, this too is love. So when the time comes for you to set off on your own, heavy winds will sweep past your building and great gray clouds will congregate above. Your loved ones will stand there like puddles beneath their umbrellas, holding you tight and kissing you and wishing you luck. But it won't be luck you'll leave with, because you'll have love. You'll have love, love, love. Joy and woe are woven fine, wrote William Blake, and when this we rightly know, safely through the world we go. Because we daily live the truth in the poet's words, we pause each time we gather to worship wherever and however we gather, to speak into the shared embrace of this community, our joys and our sorrows. You may type your joys and sorrows in the comments and know that they are read. You may speak them aloud where you are and know that they are held. We remember with sorrow the person killed and the people injured at the health clinic in Buffalo, Minnesota. We remember with sorrow the people killed and the people injured in the pileup on Highway I-35 at the other end of our country, near Fort Worth, Texas. We hold with joy all those people finally receiving vaccines, and we hold with sorrow our entire country, our entire world, who still lives in the grip of a terrible pandemic. We hold in prayer the United States Senate as it continues its deliberations. Let us hold all of our joys and sorrows in our hearts as we enter a spirit of meditation. The words of meditation this morning by Judah Halevi, "'Tis a fearful thing. 'Tis a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once filled me, your word was a gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched." Amen. Our first reading this morning is an excerpt from The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. "Come and play with me," proposed the little prince. "I am so unhappy." "I cannot play with you," the fox said. "I am not tamed." "Ah, please excuse me," said the little prince. But after some thought, he added, "What does that mean, tame?" "It is an act too often neglected," said the fox. "It means to establish ties." "To establish ties?" "Just that," said the fox. "To me, you are still nothing more than a little boy who is just like 100,000 other little boys, and I have no need of you. And you, on your part, have no need of me. To you, I am nothing more than a fox like 100,000 other foxes. But if you tame me, then we shall need each other. To me, you will be unique in all the world. To you, I will be unique in all the world." "I am beginning to understand," said the little prince. "There is a flower. I think that she has tamed me." "My life is very monotonous," the fox said. "I hunt chickens, men hunt me. All the chickens are just alike, and all the men are just alike, and in consequence I am a little bored. But if you tame me, it will be as if the sun came to shine on my life. I shall know the sound of a step that will be different from all the others. Other steps send me hurrying back underneath the ground. Yours will call me like music out of my house. And then look, you see the grain fields down yonder? I do not eat bread. Wheat is of no use to me. The wheat fields have nothing to say to me, and that is sad. But you have hair that is the color of gold. Think how wonderful that will be when you have tamed me. The grain, which is also golden, will bring me back the thought of you, and I shall love to listen to the wind in that wheat. The fox gazed at the little prince for a long time. Please tame me, he said. I want to, very much, said the little prince, but I have not much time. I have friends to discover and a great many things to understand. One only understands the things one tames, said the fox. Men have no more time to understand anything. They buy things already made at the shops, but there is no shop anywhere where one can buy friendship, and so men have no friends anymore. If you want a friend, tame me. What must I do to tame you? Asked the little prince. You must be very patient, replied the fox. First, you will sit down at a little distance from me, like that, in the grass. I shall look at you out of the corner of my eye, and you will say nothing. Words are the source of misunderstandings, but you will sit a little closer to me each day. The next day, the little prince came back. It would have been better to come back at the same hour, said the fox. If, for example, you come at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, then at 3 o'clock I shall begin to be happy. I shall feel happier and happier as the hour advances. At 4 o'clock, I shall already be worrying and jumping about. I'll show you how happy I am. But if you come at just any time, I shall never know at what hour my heart is to be ready to greet you. One must observe the proper rites. What is a rite? Asked the little prince. Those also are actions too often neglected, said the fox. They are what make one day different from other days, 1 hour from other hours. So the little prince tamed the fox, and when the hour of his departure drew near, "Ah," said the fox, "I shall cry." "It is your own fault," said the little prince. "I never wished you any sort of harm, but you wanted me to tame you." "Yes, that is so," said the fox. "But now you are going to cry," said the little prince. "Yes, that is so," said the fox. "Then it has done you no good at all." "It has done me good," said the fox, "because of the color of the wheat fields." And then he added, "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." "What is essential is invisible to the eye," the little prince repeated so that he would be sure to remember. "It is the time you have wasted for your rose that makes your rose so important." "It is the time I have wasted for my rose," said the little prince so that he would be sure to remember. "Men have forgotten this truth," said the fox, "but you must not forget it. You become responsible forever for what you have tamed. You are responsible for your rose." "I am responsible for my rose," the little prince repeated, so that he would be sure to remember. And our second reading, a brief portion of The Velveteen Rabbit by Marjorie Williams. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender before Nana came to tidy up the room. Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick-out handle? Real isn't how you're made, said the skin horse. It is a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real. Does it hurt? Asked the rabbit. Sometimes, said the skin horse, for he was always truthful. When you are real, you don't mind being hurt. Does it happen all at once, like being wound up, he asked, or bit by bit? It doesn't happen all at once, said the skin horse. You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily or have sharp edges or have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off. Your eyes drop out and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except for people who don't understand. And finally, a poem by Carol Ann Duffy, Valentine. Not a red rose or a satin heart. I give you an onion. It is a moon wrapped in brown paper. It promises light like the careful undressing of love. Here, it will blind you with tears like a lover. It will make your reflection a wobbling photo of grief. I am trying to be truthful. Not a cute card or a kissogram. I give you an onion. Its fierce kiss will stay on your lips, possessive and faithful as we are, for as long as we are. Take it. Its platinum loops shrink to a wedding ring if you like. Lethal. Its scent will cling to your fingers, cling to your knife. Here in the readings.
We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the birds, they tell us. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us. We're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as a flower raises its face to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the sky, it tells us. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us. We're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as the children raise all their faces to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the seas, they tell us. We're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as the flower raises its face to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love.
A Russian proverb declares, God himself prays for the capacity to love. Martin Luther King Jr., in a speech I read from a few weeks ago, you may remember, referred to love as this oft misunderstood, this oft misinterpreted concept so readily dismissed by the Nietzsches of the world as a weak and cowardly force. He went on to say, when I speak of love, I am not speaking of some sentimental and weak response. I am not speaking of that force, which is just emotional bosh. James Baldwin, in a statement by his family to the press after his death, said cryptically, love is a battle, love is war, love is growing up. How these all differ from the sentiments filling the airwaves and cyberscape in the build-up to Valentine's Day. No red rose or satin hearts, no chocolate, no kissograms. These folks are talking about onion love, about love that stains the hand with its scent, about love that draws tears. No, love is a many-splendored thing. No, all you need is love. No, will you be mine? No, sweetie pie, yours forever, kiss me, mine, yes. None of the easy declarations and demands of fantasy romantic love usually bandied about on Valentine's Day. No. In short, the Russian proverb, Martin Luther King Jr. and James Baldwin, along with Carol Ann Duffy, Marjorie Williams, and Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, are all talking and writing about the experience and the work of nitty-gritty, everyday, real love. Love on the 364 days of the year that aren't February 14th. Love in time of pandemic lockdowns and distance learning and quarantines. Real love is an experience at once so precious and so arduous that God's self might pray for the capacity to love. God doesn't want to miss out on it, and yet God fears not being up to the task. That is a monumental task. Real love, whether love of a parent for a child for a parent, a lover for a lover, friend for a friend, sibling for a sibling, and so on. Real love is not for the faint of heart. It is a risky endeavor, full of heartbreak and sorrow and uncertainty. It calls us to open ourselves to betrayal, loss, pain without limits. You know what I'm talking about. You've known from the first time you loved a friend who moved away, a pet that died, a grandparent or sibling or parent who died or left. Loving means the possibility of losing. Loving means sometimes your heart breaks, and most of us learn this long before our first real teenage heartbreak. Loving also means sometimes you break other hearts. Parents know this, and children, and friends, and lovers. We know that sometimes in setting limits or in living our own lives or doing what's right or expressing our emotions, and sometimes purely accidentally, we hurt those we love. Words spoken without forethought, unpopular rules enforced for your own good, a marriage or career choice against parental wishes, simple misunderstanding. In a moment with any of these, we can break the heart of those we love the most. This is when love calls not so much for flowers and chocolates, but patience, forgiveness, understanding, give and take, timeouts, agreements to disagree, none of which may be forthcoming until all parties have endured lots of confusion, loneliness, anger, hurt, and silence. With faithfulness, Steadfastness, courage, the willingness to start again, love can emerge from heartbreak as brilliant and precious as ever before, perhaps even more enduring. But it is never easy, never a storybook ending. No pretty words spoken, no gifts exchanged that sweep away all the unhappiness in an instant. Instead, there are usually tears and lots of words which are not pretty, and maybe some shouting and some silence, some stops and starts, lots of hard emotional work, trying over and one more time until love is rekindled or uncovered or blooms again. In our readings today, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry talks about taming creatures or flowers, and Marjorie Williams writes of the process by which toys become real. Both of them, in fact, describe love. De Saint-Exupéry speaks of the steadfastness required to tame or build a loving relationship with someone, and of the responsibility that comes along with loving someone. Williams writes of how the process of becoming real, possible only through love, sometimes hurts. It requires being in it for the long haul, willingness to stick out the rough spots, tend and water the relationship. And when you do that, you become in some degree responsible for, or rather responsible to, the one you love. And love hurts. If not the physical wear and tear of a child gently battering a stuffed animal year after year, then the emotional wear and tear of being engaged in daily life, engaged in the daily life of another human being, day after day, year after year, with all its chances and changes. No, love is not for the faint of heart. So why, I wonder, does it have the reputation it does, especially this time of year, of being all sweetness and light? Why must Martin Luther King defend it against unfair characterization as weak and sentimental, emotional bosh? Why the hearts and flowers? Why the chocolates and conversation hearts? Why the love songs? One obvious and not insignificant reason is commercialism. According to a survey conducted by the National Retail Federation and Prosper Insights and Analytics, 52% of American adults are expected to celebrate Valentine's Day this year, and they are projected to spend just under $22 billion on cards, candy, flowers, and other gifts. That's slightly down from last year's projection of $27.4 billion. It's about $167 per person, down $30 from last year. Still, even with the decline, no one is going to spend that kind of money on onions or cards that say, "I love you, but I'm too angry to talk right now." So it's no wonder that chocolates and roses sell so well. But I don't think we can blame or credit the candy companies, florists, and greeting card industry with the entire sweetness and light reputation of love. They may have exaggerated a perceived need and sentiment, but there was something there in the first place to be exaggerated. And I think the very precious nature of love has something, if not everything, to do with it. My dad died long before Louis was born, and the other grandchildren in our family are too young to really remember him. But when they were just barely able to walk, my two younger nephews would dance with delight whenever Dad walked into a room. They were unable to contain their boundless love for him in still bodies. I think that's why love is a many-splendored thing. That's why silly love songs fill the airwaves or trend on Spotify. why Valentines are decorated with hearts and lace and flowers, why sweet treats are the order of the day on this holiday devoted to love, because when it is good, there is nothing sweeter, more beautiful, more delicately intricate and strong, more worthy of songs and flowers and lace than love. I'm not only talking about toddler dancing with unrepressed joy for grandpa love, but also sigh of contentment love for siblings or best friends, the kind that comes along with the security and serenity of knowing they know you better than you know yourself and they love you anyway. And can't stop smiling delighted love at the sight of a newly beloved. And flashes of passion after all these years at the touch of a longtime lover, love. And fierce, indescribable, overwhelming love of a parent meeting their child for the first time. And loyal, wholehearted, whole-body love of a child for a pet. And on and on. Love, when it is good, is all the things the poets and songwriters say it is, and more. And because we have all tasted love when it is good, but live lives in which love is not for the faint of heart, well, then we end up with this holiday that glorifies all that is good about it, glossing over the hard work. That's okay to a certain extent. A little bit of denial often is. We want to celebrate love, and celebrations are at their essence usually simplifications. But it might be a good idea to invite a little bit of realism into our Valentine's Day observances. Robert A. Johnson, in Owning Your Shadow, writes of a couple who did just that. Not on Valentine's Day, but at their wedding. I recently heard about a couple who had the good sense to call upon the shadow in a wedding ceremony. The night before their marriage, they held a ritual where they made their shadow vows. The groom said, "I will give you an identity and make the world see you as an extension of myself." The bride replied, "I will be compliant and sweet, but underneath I will have the real control. If anything goes wrong, I will take your money and your house." They then drank champagne and laughed heartily at their foibles, knowing that in the course of their marriage, the shadow figures would have inevitably come out. Johnson concludes, they were ahead of the game because they had recognized the shadow and unmasked it. Children and teens and adults too, if we're being honest, often want to know, will you still love me if I do something wrong? What better time than Valentine's Day, already devoted to love, to have a ritual or a conversation around that very question? For each party to acknowledge things that have gone wrong in the past year, and for each party to respond in turn with love, honest love. There may be some pain and some awkwardness and some tears. It might take some getting used to. But the conversation or the ritual can be followed up with chocolates and flowers and maybe onions. Onion rings, French onion soup, creamed onions, or my grandfather's favorite Vidalia onions sliced on white bread with grape jelly. It might just become a cherished holiday tradition as partners, parents and children, family members, friends, whoever participates, realize that it strengthens the bonds of love, removes doubt, heals old and hidden wounds. Not an endeavor for the faint of heart, but for the courageous, those desirous of deeper and more resilient and nuanced loving ties. It might be worth the undertaking. Does God really pray for the capacity to love? Well, that's a question for another sermon. But I know this. You have the capacity to love. It is in each of you to go beyond the conversation heart, beyond the Hallmark greeting card, beyond the red rose and satin heart, to the onion or the egg or the shadow, the conversation or the empty vase or the goldfish, or whatever for you and your beloved, be they a child, a friend, parent, sibling, truly symbolizes your love now at this stage in your relationship. I invite you today to go beyond red and pink. Color your love yellow and aquamarine and rich mahogany and robin's egg blue. Do whatever you need to do to make this Valentine's Day about love in your real world, the good of it and the not so good of it. Above all, avoid the sentimental bosh of it. This isn't a holiday for the faint of heart, but you are not faint of heart. May it be for you a textured and expansive, shadowy and bright, and above all, love-filled Valentine's Day. Amen. Let's say in unison the words for extinguishing our chalice. The flame has been doused. The fire of our community still burns. In this moment, we become beacons on the prairie, bearers of light and warmth, until we gather again to rekindle our communal chalice. 'Tis a holy thing to love. 'Tis a human thing, love, and a holy thing. And ours to receive and to claim and to send forth in endless cycles, ever more holy, ever more human. Amen.